my name is Paula. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't already, I would very much appreciate a subscribe and a bell hit. And I come out with videos every so often about how to help adult symptoms of CPTSD, because I'm an adult with many symptoms of CPTSD, and I like to help other adults through either my coaching practice or through these free resources like these videos or my Instagram page. Not only learn how to soothe their own nervous system, but process the emotions that often launch us into unconscious coping mechanisms almost all the time. So, if any of that sounds like it would benefit you, then I would love to have you along for the journey of this channel. Today I want to talk about attachment styles. Attachment styles, I have a love-hate with the label because I think people get very attached to the label, and then we just get into that fix-it mentality of, oh, I found out what I am, I'm going to learn all about it, and then optimize myself and optimize my healing. So it's a catch-22, but I also realize that labels are useful because they help us talk to each other. So, my opinion on attachment styles, which I think I've said a couple of times, but I think everybody is all of them. I don't think there's someone sitting out there and they're just like 100% secure. No. And no one is 100% anxious, and no one's 100% avoidant. Depending on how your nervous system is feeling that day, how that other person is acting that day, we're always constantly interpreting people's signals, reinterpreting all the time. So I largely identify as someone who's dismissive avoidant. Super fun, I know. But sometimes you'll see me coming out as anxious, and sometimes I'm just very chill and secure. So, today I want to address a topic that has been brought to my attention from several people over on my Instagram account who say that they're trying to connect with someone in their life who is quite avoidant. And they're finding it friggin' hard. So I want to be a voice for avoidant folks because it's not easy to find us out here on the internet because we're off, in our hobbit holes avoiding. The irony, right? So I'm obviously not someone with extremely avoidant tendencies. Obviously, I would probably not be on YouTube if that was the case. So I can't fully enter their shoes, but I can at least speak from my experience and hopefully give you guys some ideas. If you're someone who's trying to get closer with someone with avoidant attachment, I can give you guys some ideas of how to approach us. And also some insight into what's happening behind the doors of our brains. And if you're someone who is avoidant like moi, maybe this will help articulate what might be going on for you. So I would love to know what your feedback is in the comments if I've done both those perspectives well or not. So, one thing that anxious folk tend to do a little too much, like, oh guys, at least this part of you, because your attachment style is not all of you, but this part of you wants to fix so damn bad. And this is where that classic kind of avoidant versus avoidant and anxious folk will get trauma bonded together, because the avoidant person will secretly love the excessive attention that they're receiving from the anxious person, at least up to a point. And the anxious person will feel constantly nice and familiarly preoccupied trying to solve the avoidant person's disposition, and so it's a trauma bond made in heaven. It's also not helpful and not healthy for either party. So if you are someone who is trying to get all up in the avoidant person's grill, if you have said things to them like, hey, I think you're really hermiting it up over there, and I think you're being really depressed, I think you need to get out more, you need to connect with other humans more. If you're doing anything along the lines of throwing that tone out to the avoidant person in your life, I'm going to request that you reel that in, because that is, I can't think of a scenario where that comes across as anything other than being an extremely naggy mom type of person in their life. It is exhausting for you, and it probably either confuses the avoidant person you're trying to connect with, or it straight up pisses them off. I have definitely been the receiver of this energy before, and I need to tell you right now, none of those relationships have survived. And that hasn't been because I've ghosted people, it has been straight up because I've said, you are not respecting me right now. So, for myself personally, if I'm getting to be either very close friends or I'm entering a relationship with someone, I actually sit them down and I say, this is how you will experience me most likely. Because a lot of the time, I don't feel very safe with people for very long, and that's not their fault. It's at least something, though, that if I don't have the full tools to cope with, to soothe all the time, I can at least let them know how I'm going to operate when I'm feeling unsafe or overwhelmed with all of the feelings I've been suppressing so long. Super fun being avoidant. And so they're going to experience me a certain way on the other end. And the point of that is not to like warn them or piss them off. It is to really give them the opportunity to be in relationship, or to say yes or no. Like, this is my reality. Are you going to say yes or no to this? So I really hope that if that hasn't happened for you, that you get to have a conscious conversation with this person where they get to talk about why they communicate the way that they do. They might not know all the reasons, but even if they're keeping it superficial, like, I'm not going to text back to you every day. Even if it's just that, don't psychoanalyze, please. This person that you're trying to connect with either is hyper aware of why they are the way they are and the fact that nobody likes it, or they have no idea. They might not even know that they feel things at all. And so this was definitely the case for me. Like, I would think I was being extremely vulnerable, and then the feedback from many other people in my life would be like, why are you so distant? It was extremely disorienting to me. And not to say that it was their fault for saying those things, but it's also not it's not helpful to come up and say, like, hey, the way you're acting is abnormal. Because what is normal? Sometimes for an anxious person, reaching out as often as y'all do is not normal. But that also does not help if we, a common argument between avoidance and anxious is, why are you always on your fucking phone? Or why are you always trying to hang out with me or see me? And then the anxious person says, well, why are you never trying to do this? And the very common insult that an anxious person often gives to an avoidant is something along the lines of, there's only one thing that makes, this life worthwhile, and that's human relationships. And so piling on the guilt, piling on the overwhelm as to like why either party is not acting as per a human should, it's not a place where connection happens. So both parties, if this has happened, I hope you guys can find a safe time when you're both feeling nice and rational and grounded to apologize for that, and please refrain from it. And if you need assistance in calming your triggers, I have made a whole other video all about that, and I'll link that up here. And there are ways to either co-regulate together, get yourselves back down to a safe space where you can be vulnerable, or if you need to take your own space where you can start to do the same thing. But that's not a helpful place. Don't be the nagging mom. You can't change people unless you've had an explicit invitation. If this avoidant person slides on over to you and says, hey, I really want to change my behavior. I would love some feedback from you about how I am to interact with. If you're getting anything short of that, don't comment on it. Please. So that's actually very simple of an answer. Simple answer, harder to do. Harder to do, especially if this activates an abandonment wound in you. If this does activate an abandonment wound, so now I'm talking to the folks, I don't even care if you're specifically anxiously attached or not, but the people who are asking this question, who are wanting to be closer to someone who just consistently shoves you away. I really want to ask those folks, are you okay with this as their reality? Are you okay with trying to love someone who acts this way? Are you okay with someone being very close to you or important to you in your life and having this kind of chronic it's almost like a consistent inconsistency. The thing you will often experience with someone with avoidant attachment is consistent inconsistency. They will seem either like they're right here, and that's when they're feeling safe, and maybe driven a little bit by guilt because they haven't been acting in the way that people have told them they should be acting, or they'll be completely withdrawn. Is this okay with you? Do you have the personal security to soothe yourself when this happens, to see this objectively more often than not, and to be secure when they are going through their shit? Or is this constantly landing you in a wound state? Is this okay for you to hold a relationship, maybe it's a very important one in your life, to host that and to have that be your main person? Please be honest with yourself and tend to yourself, because the reality for you, if you're experiencing that you are being so dysregulated that you're kind of moving past the obsessive fixing of yourself that I think so many people who have grown up under a capitalist system naturally have, and now you're trying to extend your hand out of your circle of control, which really only includes you and your behavior, and you're trying to stick it into someone else's circle of control and ask them, like, why are you the way that you are? You should be like this, you should be like that, you should not be doing this thing. Please, more spotlight on you, because something's happening here for you. And that is definitely indicative, to me at least, you can tell me if you disagree or not, but that's indicative that you are overextended. And please tend to you. We don't have to be saviors for other people, y'all. So ask yourself, given this person's range of reality, given the way that they are, can you love them right now? Can you love them right here? And what's the narrative that's driving you to try to fix? Because a lot of times I think it's something along the lines of this. Like, if they don't come into healing in this lifetime, somehow they failed. Somehow they're not going to be okay. Somehow, the spiritual source, God, lack of God, whatever your beliefs are, doesn't really matter. Somehow they're left behind. They're not experiencing life. They're not experiencing relationships, and so they're not experiencing life. There's no one way to do these things. And people must come into their own when they come into their own, and they must do it in a sovereign way from themselves. So unless directly invited, please, whenever that thought loop comes in that says, oh, I'm going to reach out and just rant, or I'm just going to, get behind their back to a friend and say, like, oh my God, why are they the way that they are? Check yourself, because that's a wound in you. Please tend to you and make sure that you're okay. Maybe this person's not fantastic for you. Doesn't mean you have to shun them, but maybe just talk. Invite a talk. If even that won't happen, then you got to do what's best for you. And maybe they just can't be like your main person for right now. Maybe they can be there, taking their time, all that good stuff, but maybe they're not your main person. So, if you want to just get in touch with us as an avoidant person, here are the questions or the messages, the stuff that feels really nice when I receive it, at least. And it's just like genuine check-ins. If you can be in a grounded place and you just want to be curious about how someone's doing, that is freaking fantastic. So literally just the question, how are you doing? Or, if you want to, I would rather have someone be explicit with me and say, like, hey, I've noticed that you're not texting me very often. Are you okay? Is it something I've done? Can we talk about a way to understand where each other is at? That is totally fine. And you also have to respect the answer that may come back to you that might be very understanding, or that may not be understanding at all. But please don't fight with this person. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it, if they're not willing to go past their wound. Please don't be digging harder than they are for some kind of healing. That's incredibly imbalanced, and it's not loving towards yourself. So, curious questions are, of course, like, you're well within your rights to ask just genuinely curious questions about how to make them feel more comfortable. And anything beyond that, yeah, please save your energy. So I hope that this has helped. Sometimes we do owe each other apologies for getting a little too down each other's throats. Sometimes we do need to own our own wounds, own our energy and the ways we accidentally throw it across the room and make it splatter all over the wall and make a huge mess. Rein it back in, clean it up. And take care of ourselves more. And the more you tend to perhaps what is an abandonment wound, the more you can probably survive longer and not be bothered by this person's communication style and their own, frankly, their own attachment problems. So the less you judge them, the less you'll judge yourself. That's my hope anyway. If you would like a little free PDF, I do have that. I will link that down below. It's called the Mirror Method. And it's just a written prompt that you can actually memorize very, very quickly. So you won't even need the PDF after a couple times of using it. But it helps you not only get all of the messier, more vulnerable emotions out of you in a safe place, but also to tend to what the real message is underneath that stuff. Because a lot of times our own wounded energy, it comes out in code. It's really hard to read because it's been automatic for our whole lives. So my hope with that is that it does lead to more vulnerable communication in relationships, what might just help you get a little bit closer to your attachment, to the person who has the challenging attachment style in your life. However, expectation-free communication is always the most loving because it's the most neutral, and ironically, neutrality coming from just that really calm, beautiful, grounded place. It's what leads to beautiful connection. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope it was easily understandable. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. They're all very welcome in the little box below, and I will see you guys next time with another video.